everyone. Welcome to this edition of Ramblings of an Old Fart Podcast. Hello, my name is Craig Warren. I'm 71 years old and been married almost 53 years. Father of 9 and grandpa to a bunch. I'm sort of retired. I retired at 65 to provide full-time care for my wife, who's had some pretty serious health issues. Lately, I realized I needed something to do, though, to keep my mind active. So why not a podcast? I mean, I have a lot of experience. I've done a lot of things in my 50-plus years in the workforce. I have a lot of opinions, so what more would I need? I should mention that I have never been a member of a political party, and I do not intend to do so. My podcasts do not come from a political place, just from factual and common sense place. So let's imagine for a minute or so here that you want to start a business. A few years back, you would put on a suit and tie or a nice dress and you'd walk down, go down to the county courthouse or one of the state office buildings. You'd present the clerk with the ID and fill out some paperwork, and then you'd wait for a few days to a few weeks to get your approval in a business, a LLC. You'd have the paperwork to prove that you are now an official LLC or some other business structure. But fast forward to today. Now you can start a company in as little as about 10 or 15 minutes online for the price of a real nice dinner somewhere. But that convenience has a dark side. In California this month, investigators have uncovered a massive ghost fleet, if you will. Hundreds of businesses registered with the state using what they call golden IDs. These are not just stolen Social Security numbers or driver's license. They belong to people who have actually left the country, meaning the owner, supposedly, of this new business doesn't even live here anymore and have no idea that that business exists. They aren't around to check mail or see anything that comes to alert anyone that this is happening. A recent investigation in March found that more than 800 registrations filed in California over the past year, business registration, over the past year were likely fraudulent. Criminals use what they call golden IDs. These stolen identities are from immigrants who have moved back to their home countries and are unlikely to monitor their U.S. credit or anything else. I mean, a lot of them could have been students here on student visas or people here on work visas. Could be even highly trained people that are here working with U.S. companies on a project and they're here temporarily. But these crooks find out who these people are, steal their identity, and then use it, and these people have no idea that they're being used. The Secretary of State's office is legally required to file this business paperwork, but they're not required to check it out to make sure these people actually truly exist, which seems highly just stupid. I guess that's the only way of saying it. This allows these fake businesses, like a shell company, corporation or construction company or bed and bath company that doesn't actually exist. It allows them to be set up in a few minutes and then start raking in the money. Once a business is registered, the criminals can apply for commercial loans or small business loans or corporate credit cards, all kinds of things. Just this month, the FBI and the LAPD dismantled a major ring that used stolen identities to hijack property titles and create fraudulent businesses to secure $million in loans. There are some key figures here. Nazareth Chakrian, Arnold Meridians, Avetus Hekamayan. I don't even know how to say it. There's a theme here, though. These are all foreigners. Simple as that. They didn't just steal personal IDs, though. They specialized in mortgage and business fraud. They create entities to wash the stolen property titles, and then they disappear once the loan money is wired. The Department of Justice recently targeted a transnational fraud organization that specialized in synthetic identity fraud to defraud government programs and banks. Key figures named in that one was Pierre Salgado Telequi, Mara Lisette Chavez, Sergio Madrigal Lacayo Jr., and others. This group was part of a larger network that used the modular approach. One group provided the stolen IDs. Another used AI to generate fake supporting documents. And then you have the actual theft group. They specialize in setting up the businesses and monetizing the accounts. Let's just cover one other here real quick, because these are all do the same thing, but then use it in different ways. See, some of those used it to get property, illegally. But these guys here, this one, they used the credit cards and the credit lines that they could get. And they said that this company here acted, and they contribute about $611 million in fraud to these guys. What they did, they'd use the identity theft and create credit cards and credit lines, and then they would purchase high-end consumer electronic stuff. It looked like a legitimate business. But then what they would do is they would export all that stuff overseas and sell it and turn it into cash, and then they would disappear. So, as I mentioned earlier, most of these people are illegals or non-citizens. There are a few of them that they found that were, some had some kind of legal status. But this Arnold Muradians that we talked about, he's an Iranian national. He'd already been arrested before, had an outstanding warrant for a removal order, deportation. This is a recurring theme. We have so many of these people that commit crimes. We get a deportation order, but then for some reason they just keep getting turned loose back onto the public. I just can't understand that. Something's missing here. And then we have the other individuals in that same ring, that Nazareth Shakrian, were listed as residents of Hollywood. And here's another frustrating thing. Apparently in California, if someone is arrested on certain things, they don't always report their citizenship status or their legal status here in the United States. And that seems really strange to me. If somebody's committing crimes, I'm thinking I want to know who they are. Are they a citizen? And if they're not, that should immediately trigger a deportation. You want to come here and we accept you in, but if you want to come here and just commit fraud against us, then you don't belong here. That should immediately get them shipped out. But if they don't report that, that's how they continuously get turned loose. That's my way of thinking. Okay, so here's the thing. One of these companies, if we look at these are like organized crime, truly, because they have different levels. I mean, like here you have like the architect behind all this. Most of the time, these are people from overseas, from the Eastern Europe or someplace like that, and they're the ones who purchase the golden IDs from someone, and they're the ones that generate the AI stuff, tremendously effective documents, and create a backstory and do all kinds of things to make these companies look legit. And then you have the registrar. That's the guy that's here in the country, whether it might be a citizen or just a resident, or non-citizen resident here. They're the ones that create the P.O. boxes and some kind of rent a small building with an address. And they're the ones that walk into like the office and pay the fees or whatever if they have to do that. And then you have the cleaners. We have accountants, lawyers, whatever, that help them cover this stuff up. So let's take a look at why the dollar amount can be so high. In the California case that I mentioned, the goal wasn't just to steal credit cards. It was to leverage the stolen ID to get a business, which is considered the golden ticket, right? Once a criminal has a state-registered business, this is not just in California, by the way. This is in Florida, Texas, Georgia, Michigan, and other places. They're having the same issues. But once they have that, and they have all this AI-generated backstory and officially looking documents, then they can go to the Small Business Administration and get loans. They can open high limit credit or commercial lines of credit and credit cards. They can lease expensive equipment like diesel trucks or medical technology or all kinds of stuff. But then the thing is, that gets shipped overseas before the payments come due, and they can simply disappear. Because these golden IDs belong to people who have left the country, there's no way of checking, they're not checking their mail from the U.S. here. So information gets sent there, and there's nobody there that can trigger an alert here. So it goes on for months and months before this gets bad enough for somebody to start checking. And by then it's too late. The money's gone and already been shipped overseas or something. Today we're asking the hard question, though. Has our government traded our systemic integrity for a more user-friendly interface? It's like I said, you can go online and do this in a matter of a few minutes, pay a fee of $100, and voila, you just have the newest corporation in the country set up. There's no organization that's really following up, and there's no way to actually check, doing any research on these people to see if they actually truly do exist. When we look at the numbers from the GAO, which estimates that fraud is now effectively the 6th largest agency in the federal government, even though they're not an agency, but that's an astounding figure. If it was an agency, it'd be the 6th largest, right? And we're talking of hundreds of billions of dollars. So we're going to look at why our local Secretary of State might legally, well, let's say on the good side here, might not be obligated, but in some states they're forbidden for doing the double checking. Their job is to file the paperwork if it comes in, not to do any research, not to verify that these people actually exist. That seems like a really stupid way to run government. So let's start with the California discovery here a little bit more. It wasn't just a few bad actors. It was more like a factory. I mean, these criminal syndicates were popping up everywhere. Some operating right here from in the U.S., but others were from Eastern Europe and places like that, using this AI to generate utility bills, professional licenses, degrees, whatever they needed to make this look realistic. And so then all you need is $100 and file it, and you're on your way. You think about that. That's a pretty good return on investment if you spend 10 minutes online, spend $100, and you get a certificate of good standing from the state of California, and suddenly you just have the keys to apply for $150,000 small business loan or a $50 line of commercial credit from some of the big banks. The problem is, when this all is real profitable for them, but then somebody's got to pay the bill somewhere along the line, right? And that's the taxpayer. That's you and me. Eventually, that's the way it always works. Let's talk some real numbers here. Because when you say fraud, it can sound like maybe it's a victimless crime, kind of like a clerical error or something like that. But according to the Government Accounting Office, the federal government has been losing between $233 billion and $521 billion a year to fraud. Now think about that. At the high end, we're losing $500 billion a year. That's more than the entire budget of the Department of Homeland Security. It's about 7% of every dollar the federal government spends is fraudulent. And that's just the confirmed stuff, right? If you look at the improper payments made, money sent to the wrong person or the wrong amount, the government estimates the total since 2003 is about $2.8 trillion with a T. Now, I know here I've seen articles on and on newsletters and on the news that say that they figure about 20 to 30% of government spending is all waste. I don't know about those numbers yet, and I don't know if we know for sure. But when you add up all the waste and overpayments and Medicare and all of these things, you start to see why people are sounding the alarm. We're essentially running a bucket brigade with massive holes in the buckets. And we're not going to get the fire put out like that until we change some of the things, some of our ways of fighting back. So, here's how this works out. There's basically 3 tiers here who actually get stuck with the bill. First, it's usually the banks. When you get one of these ghost companies, takes out a $150,000 loan and then vanishes, the bank eats the loss. But you and I know the banks don't truly eat the loss. They're not charities, right? So they raise interest rates, so they tack on a bunch of free fees or something to make up the losses. Second is the consumer. In a 2025 report, it showed that businesses are now losing almost 10% of their annual revenue to various fraud schemes. To stay profitable, of course, they have to raise their prices, right? And finally, it comes down to the taxpayer. When you consider $93 billion is what they estimate just in Medicare and Medicaid last year, the fraud, that's money that was supposed to go to care for seniors and our most vulnerable. It's the money that could have paved roads or funded trade schools or whatever, but instead it's sitting in a foreign bank account because the state filing office didn't have the mandate or the integrity of their system to ask for a real ID of some kind. Now, I started looking to see, is there anybody out there really trying to fix this? And I found in my home state of Utah, they have done several things. There's this House Bill 571 that's supposed to have some kind of secure forms of ID. I'm not sure exactly how that's supposed to work. Then we have the Senate Bill 275. That's a digital identity bill. I know that one was, I'm not sure. It just doesn't make sense to me. I'm not sure it's really going to fix the problem. But they're at least working on it. But there is one other bill. There's a House Bill 437. That went into effect in January. It was originally intended to work with like underage alcohol and and tobacco purchases. So this special ID verification thing. So now they're thinking about increasing that and spreading that through the system to maybe help stop this stuff. I don't really know. I look through this stuff and I'm not really sure how much it's going to help at this point. But we got to do something. At least got to start somewhere. California is doing some of the things too, but it looked to me like all they were doing is trying to shift the blame somewhere else. There was one Senate Bill 446, but basically it says that businesses must notify individuals of a data breach within 30 days. This is intended to give the golden ID victims a chance to freeze their account before the fraudster can register a ghost company. Problem is, these golden IDs are from people who's already gone back to their home countries in Mexico or, I don't even know, any number of places. How are we going to know how to contact them? Then it's not like they're going to leave forward mail, kind of a thing. I don't think. Then the other one is basically, it gives you a very limited time frame. So if you find out you were a victim of a mistaken identity or somebody defrauded, stole your ID, you have just a certain time in order to be able to get protection. It seems like they're kind of covering their own butt, but I'm not sure it's going to do a lot else. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of other things at the federal level. They're targeting some AI stuff and granting money to the states to help them build programs. I'm just not sure it's enough. I see there was a whole bunch of other stuff in my research, but it's all kind of the same stuff. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But I wanted to go through a couple of details here that I came through on my research. my question is why did it take somebody so long to start doing something? This type of fraud's been around for probably 25 years. Not quite at the level it is now, but it's been around. But from my research, I found that according to the government, every $1 lost to fraud actually cost the economy roughly $4.76. And that is because after you factor in the investigations, the legal fees, and the recovery efforts, it just costs that much money. It costs more money to try and reclaim the money that we lost than the money we lost, which that's kind of how government works. The sad part is, according to the same government figures, they only recover about 1% of the money lost to fraud anyway. Okay, so it's reported that about 80% of organizations are seeing a dramatic increase in fraud, leading to a massive increase in prevention budgets. When they spend a lot more money for prevention, that cost has to be passed on to the consumer. So, a couple of last things here. These things can all be tied into two different national issues, according from what I can see. First, we have immigration. If you notice, many of those involved in these fraud schemes were non-citizens or illegals. We have to let ICE do its job and get these people out of our country. We're not talking about mom and dad and a couple of kids that come here for a better life. But we have crooks here and we have dangerous criminals here. We have to get them out. And the second thing, the Save America Act, or something like it. You can see how easy it's been for non-citizens and foreign nationals to steal billions, or should I say trillions. That's a lot of money. But on one hand, it is only money. A lot of it, but only money. I read an article a couple of days ago about New Zealand. And there's another podcast that I put out about this also, but I wanted to tie it in here too. They've had a lot of immigration over the last few years. Much of it's from wealthy countries like the U.S. and others. The problem is the non-citizens can vote in their elections after a very short period of residency. The newcomers are changing the country so much that a large part of the citizenry are leaving and moving to places like Australia. The wealthy people moving in have changed their economy so much the normal citizens, the real true citizens of New Zealand can't afford to stay there anymore. So like I said, a lot of them are moving to Australia and other places. But my question is, when you change your economy and your country so much, the citizens want to leave. When you get a large portion of non-citizens there who are not loyal to the country, they can and do destroy the character and the ideology of the country, and I dare say the economy. This is a dangerous thing, and that we are going to see that here too. As I have mentioned many times in my this immigration thing has been a contributor to the downfall of empires and republics and dynasties throughout recorded history. And we're not going to be any different unless we get on top of it and fix it. So I want to thank you for joining me today. I think I'm going to leave it there. I think that's enough to think about. I hope that you found it entertaining or educational or thought-provoking or something. Join me next time, won't you? I'm Craig Warren, and this has been the Ramblings of an Old Fart Podcast. God bless and keep you. Till next time.